This is the Bosch GTS 10XC.
Nope, it's not. It's the GTS 10XC. We're not even 5 seconds in and I've already bottled it. Shows what I know, really. Hilariously, my next statement is about product professionalism.
A professional-ish table saw that's been the centerpiece of my humble little workshop. One, because it sits smack in the middle of it, and two, because I do use it as a central work surface. Some things about it that I don't like and that I've been meaning to do something about for absolute ages. First is with the saw itself, some of the features of it and the design. And the second is with the cart that I built for it, that it's still sitting on. And let's start in the back here. There's this plastic piece. Which way does it go? Oh yeah, like this. It has this bracket, and the power cord must have been, I don't know, looped around it and then some pull, and that snapped clean off. Minor issue. The main thing is the sawdust outlet, or whatever this is. The delivered adapter here, the only way that I can hook this up to my also Bosch dust extractor is by using this awkward adapter here, which constricts the flow to like less than an inch, about 2 centimeters. That's not particularly helpful because most of the stuff, the sawdust that is, gets trapped inside the machine. Like you can see this here, it's all in there, and that's not particularly great. Now, issue number 2 is probably related. Again, it's the same here, the sawdust is trapped inside the machine, and I've noticed that cranking the saw blade up and down has become really hard to do. So my guess is whatever gears are in there are just completely clogged up by the sawdust. So what I'll do next is I'll flip this over, clean it up, and see if there is any issues, any damage in there. Now, why Bosch chose not to come up with a system that makes snapping the dust extractor to this easy and the standard, I don't know. Let's see if I can just flip her over to have a look underneath and inside. She's a heavy one. Yeah, she's full of sawdust. Oh, there's 2 screws here. And the hinge down there, unscrew these and then probably flip it open. Oh, and before I do anything else, I probably want to unplug her. Oh, they're captive screws, that's excellent. At least they're not going to just clack away somewhere. So I can see the power cord here, and that is damaged for sure. Like that is, I think I'm seeing just blank copper there. I guess it's a good thing I did this when I did. Like blank wires heating up surrounded by sawdust is probably not a great thing to have in your workshop. Looking at that particular wire issue here, I'll leave that sit for a bit. I don't need to cut anything with the table saw for the time being, and I'm really not in the mood to start messing with wires right now, so I think I'll start with the cart. What are my issues with the cart? So there's the design of it. I think I built this thing before I built any of the workbenches. As can be seen by this design here, there's 2 frames. Of course, that's completely different from all the other workbenches here that have a much cleaner, more visually pleasing design. And when it comes to building something and making it look good as well, if you can do it, and you should. Obviously, that's not the only issue that I have with this. Other issue is it's an awkward shape. Everything else here has a depth of 60 centimeters, which again is due to me using Euro bins. That the size that I mostly have is 40 by 60s, and then I have to use it for this weird storage here, which is plywood cut-offs and paper towels. For reasons I can absolutely not remember, this top frame here uses 6x2s and the bottom there uses 4x2s. I don't like the look of it and I never have. The uprights I used 4x4s. I don't know why I did this. I thought I had to make this extra beefy because the saw is so heavy, but they don't really do anything. And this doesn't need to be 6 inches. Complete nonsense. Another issue, the camera might not pick this up particularly well, is that these 6x2s here, of course, were twisted, and I could not force them into shape. So I have these lips here, or these overhangs or whatever, and the same on this side. It's egregious, it's ugly, and it's been bugging me for years. I've really not been overly smart when it comes to storing certain things in this workshop. I have all these loose plastic bags or paper bags here. Then of course there is my waste solution, which is just empty bags of dog food where sawdust and other workshop refuse goes, and my scrap metal solution. Point being, this storage space under here can probably be smartly used for any sort of waste that I have here, whether that's just generic refuse, wood cut-offs, plywood cut-offs, scrap metal. Since I want to do a new table saw card, any solution should also solve my my waste problem. That should all have its home right here.
At this point, I wanted to have a time lapse of the old cart being dismantled, but the camera battery died, so here's only a hint of the deconstruction. But rest assured, it is very much dismantled and deconstructed.
Unfortunately, looking at 61.5. That is very, very annoying. That's just slightly out of tune. Now, in terms of length, which is 76, isn't all that important that I have to consider here, that I want to consider. I want the frame to accommodate, and that is the width of 2 Euro bins. It makes sense to take all that space and really fit it around 2 of those for storage again, wood cut-off, scrap metal. Each of those is 40 centimeters. I need 80 centimeters interior width, because my timber is nearly 10 centimeters. If I make it 100 centimeters wide, 61.5 or 62 deep, and 60 centimeters tall, it should be able to accommodate 2 of those with ease. So what happened inside here, best as I can tell, is because the dust extraction that I had constricted the airflow too much, and as we've just seen, things like this were also stuck in the chute. That pretty much limited the amount of dust that could be extracted. So it just built up here over, well, the years until it filled this entire cavity here. The dust, obviously, it settles at the bottom and then keeps building up towards the top. What happened is that the dust, the sawdust, over time just kept pushing this wire here towards, somehow, towards these gears, and then as the saw blade is lowered and raised, that just kept grinding away at the wires. The best way I can think of fixing this is with a crimped butt splice for each individual vein, the live, the neutral and the ground. There's no way around it. This is, I guess, what I've been trying to procrastinate from. Actually, there's 4 wires here. Live, neutral, there's grey and black. Well, it's a good thing that I don't need to tell which is which, because I'd be hard pressed. I just need to strip them all
I'm only twisting these up very loosely. They don't need to be super compact, and in fact probably also shouldn't be, because I don't know what that does to the connection inside the butt splice. Speaking of butt splices, I'm gonna get those now. When I test ran the blade in this position, all the dust immediately swirling around was obvious. That ties in directly with the first upgrade or modification that I have in mind for my table saw, and since I have it propped up here and open, I might as well go ahead and start installing that now. And of course this is everything that so far has fallen out of the saw, even after I vacuumed it, so clearly shows potential for improvement. So this is the blade cover or blade housing, and this bit here where I can stick my whole hand in and touch the blade, this is why all the sawdust is just flying around. This red bit here, that's the blade cover. It sits on top. I think I can just be pushed out of the way. So there's whole bits of plywood here, and these darker chips, they're super dense. So this is walnut. This is from the bathroom countertop and windowsill, and I've done those in 2020. So those just stayed in there, clogging up the machine. This is the chute for the dust extraction, and they've been trapped here all these years. So that's the blade housing. This is the inside of the blade housing, and I believe that this goes on top of here. Now, what on-camera me does absolutely not bother with is explaining what the upgrade is. It's a textile envelope that goes inside the blade housing, ensuring that sawdust has only got two exit points. The dust extractor at the back, and the top, of course, where it can blow straight in your face. So the blade is spinning free without ever catching on. There's probably like 2 fingers width between the blade and the fabric. 45 degrees. And this is why it's textile, so that it adjusts with the blade. And yeah, there is now a finger's width between the blade and the fabric, and it spins without catching. So this should actually work and hopefully keep more dust out of the interior of my table saw. On to the next problem with the saw, and that's the fence. It has play here, so to get a consistent cut, there is 2 methods that I know of to make that happen. When I set the fence, I use the speed square, and then I move that with the fence every time to make sure that as long as the fence is square to this edge here, it sort of gives me a consistent cut that isn't angled in or angled out. Still play here. This doesn't eliminate all the wobble. The other method that I know of is measuring the distance between the blade and the fence in the front, and then again in the back.
Again, that's also not super accurate, and it's a right pain in the backside since this has to be done every time. So that's the next thing I want to tackle. So that fence has so far been scraping around on 2 bits of just plastic. And this upgrade kit here swaps those out for 2 caps that sit inside a groove in the table saw, which keeps the fence from wobbling. And because the caps also have got ball bearings, it's really easy to move the fence now, which past me is going to demonstrate here in a second. Oh wow. That's remarkable. But is it square? It seems just a little bit out of true. This end is further over to this side by, I don't know, maybe somewhere between 1/2 and 1/3 of a millimeter. But I'm seeing there is an adjustment screw here. Yeah, there's no wobble or anything. Absolutely square. Right, so that's installed. That's the fence upgrades. Here's what they do. 1, it just effortlessly slides from one side to the other. It is perfectly square. And 3, fine adjustment in the decimal millimeter range without having to move the entire fence. Just a few turns of this dial here. Now that's not all I have in mind for my table saw, but I think the rest of the upgrades I'm going to put in once it has a home again. Now the goal is to have a similar joint as I have here. This is the actual leg, and this is my long side up here, and this is just a brace to kill that overhang that I don't like. So these screws here, they go through the long side, they go through the actual leg and into the short side. That's what holds all of this together. Measurement wise, this is pretty simple. So this piece here is 9.6 centimeters wide. So I'm measuring 3 centimeters from either side. That leaves 3.5 or 3.6 here in the middle. And then 2 centimeters in from the side, because most of these bits here are 4 centimeters wide. So they're smack in the middle with a good bit of material on either side of the screw to avoid splitting. So my fronts are all done, or the long sides rather. So these are the actual legs, and I only need the marks on the outside of these. So one here, one there, 3 centimeters. The other one, they'll have to be 6.6 taken from the top, but since I have the sliding rule now set to 3, I'm just going to mark all the 3s, then all the 2s, and then all the 6.6 and so on, just so I don't have to readjust this like 3 times for every workpiece. It took me a moment to find these, simply because I have not yet put a label on this storage bin, and that's really what the label maker is for. All of these are large wood screws, and that's what I will print on the label. Large wood screws. Now, because I'm going through 3 pieces of wood, I will need 15 centimeter screws, and I think that's what this is. Yep, that is a 150 mil. All these ones that I've recovered of the previous iteration of the table saw card are 10 millimeters, but these are all still very much good, so I'm going to keep them. Because these are flathead screws, and I don't want them to sit on top of the wood, I want them to sit slightly recessed. So what is the 16? So I need to forsten a bit. That is at least 16 millimeters wide. Right, and now that I have these neat recesses, I can now drill all the way through the wood. So now that my frame's done, I have to think about the shelves or the surfaces inside. The top, that's going to take one piece of plywood, but the bottom is a bit different. Now I want to have big Euro bins in here, probably one 60 by 40 on this side for just ordinary rubbish, and then on the right I think two 40 by 30 bins, one for plywood cut-offs and then another one for scrap metal. So that to me means drawer slides. What I'm thinking is flat mount them.
And after installing the drawer slides mounts, I'd take a left turn and start preparing the side and back panels for installation using pocket holes, which has absolutely nothing to do with drawer slides, which is why I'm now having to add voiceover explaining exactly that.
All these panels are really quite solid. If I want to hang anything off of them, like I said, a French cleat system or something else, they'll be more than capable of holding that. I suppose I can now flip this over, put the wheels on, or casters, and then get this thing on the floor. Let's be smart about this. There she is. Well pleased with that.
I cannot recommend this cutting technique unless you have an abundance of forearm and shoulder strength. Actually, even then I still can't. Next step is screwing the top sheet onto the cart and then route the edges flush with the frame. A strangely rewarding and enjoyable process. Right, apparently we're staying in time lapse and mounting the drawer slides flat as announced several clips ago. Why the delay? I'm not sure anymore. Anyway, here they are and in they go. Something I did plan for. This new cart from the beginning was to bolt the saw into the cart using insert nuts. You pre-drill the timber and hand screw the insert nut into it. The saw has holes in its corners for exactly this purpose, and I used M8 bolts and washers to secure the saw to the cart. The two are now virtually inseparable.
And now using the adapter.
This is me almost burying the lead here. That adapter, which allows me to directly connect the Bosch click and clean system to the saw, which again, Bosch does not offer any practical solution for, is finally in, and it works a charm. Oh, and the bracket has been replaced as well. A bit of table saw bling to round the experience out with. These two red handhold inserts aren't necessary at all, but they kind of put the table in table saw and whatever. I don't need to justify myself here. Oh yes, the accessories. So here I'm quickly making two holders and gluing and screwing them to the back of the cart.
Well, that works. And so does that. So at the back here, the holders for the table saw accessories, fence accessory, and I guess a mitre fence there. Here along the side is where I currently have the lids for the Euro bins. I haven't found a better place or use for them, so that's where they stay at the moment. A little storage space here, I haven't filled it with anything as of yet, so it's there if I need it. I've got my rubbish bins down here, normal waste, plywood cut-offs, to be sorted. There might be some useful stuff in there, scrap metal at the back.
My fence is currently sitting here, and I mounted a power strip to the side here because it has a really long cord as opposed to the one the saw came with. And that gives me a lot of freedom to move the cart about in the workspace. I haven't figured exactly what to use the little cubby on the right side here, but as I said before, it's there if I need it.
I cut this out of just a, I think, 14 centimeters bit of plywood, put this in here as a tabletop extender to add a bit of stability under this self-healing cutting mat. Just a bit cleaner, and it prevents any dust between these nooks and crannies here.
And that's the lot. That's all the upgrades to my table saw setup as of summer 2026. And I like it.